All right, welcome. My name is Daniel Hill of Alchemical Records. I'm very excited to be joined here tonight with Oren Levine and Khadijo Kwabena. These two collaborators are coming to us live from the island of St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands to talk about a new project called Groove Park. Oren launched Groove Park earlier this year with the release of Island in the Sea. Be sure to check out the band's website at grooveparkmusic.com for the latest updates about Groove Park, and stay tuned. In just a little while, we'll show the music video for Bend Don't Break, the most recent release, and talk to Oren and Khadijo about the inspiration behind the single. You can find out more about Khadijo's music on his website, khadijomusic.com. Well,
yes, thank you for having me here.
So there's the first thing that we're walking into is, what's the time difference?
It's none, actually. No, none right now, because they don't do daylight savings time in the Virgin Islands.
Well,
so
that would be,
it's usually an hour later. So
okay, so when daylight savings is in effect, you get an extra hour.
Right.
Got it. Okay, so in this case, we're all on the same time clock. That's a lot of fun. Right. I kind of expected you to be doing a little time traveling when you told me that you were headed over there, Oren.
Yeah, I wish. No, not quite. Yes. The extra hour is sometimes nice, but no, I mean, close enough to the equator that the extra hour of daylight savings doesn't make a difference.
So Khadija, what's the weather like out there right now?
Well, the weather right now is sunny every day. We have sprinkles of showers on pockets of the islands, different sections of the island. So he might get rain, but up east, where I live on the eastern end of the island, I don't get any rain, or I may get rain and he doesn't get. So it's not a complete downpour on all parts of the island. It's just little pockets here and there.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like a lot of fun, not knowing what the weather is for your neighbor.
Yep. And it means when it does start to rain, you know it's going to blow over in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Over to your neighbor's house.
Well, and the asterisk is except during hurricane season.
Exactly.
So.
Well, hopefully you won't have one of those anytime soon. Certainly not on this call. Khadijo, I would love, I know a little bit more about Oren than you. I'm just meeting you for the first time on this video call tonight. Would you mind telling everybody a little bit about yourself and, maybe a little bit about what drew you to this collaboration with Oren?
Right. So I am Khadijo Kwabena, and I'm a musician here on St. Croix. My principal instrument is piano, but I play vibraphone, percussion instruments, and other keyboard instruments like pipe organ and stuff like that. I'm currently a music teacher. On the high school level, I teach music appreciation and jazz fusion to the youngsters that are really attempting to expand on their musical palette, because most of what the island does is pretty much the genres are calypso and reggae. And once they get into that cycle of understanding the music, like from that point of view, then it's a matter of sort of channeling their efforts into understanding how all of those things came from something else. So let's take, for instance, reggae music. Reggae music came from ska music, and that was the music that Bob Marley did in his early days, moving up into reggae music as we know it now. And so once they get the understanding of that, then they're more keen into understanding Brazilian music and Afrobeat and all of those things that they may come into contact with, through their journey of music. But the idea of it is to expose them to it. So that's what I do. And by the time I link up with Oren, Oren heard of me on website.
I think we also met once at Rise
Yes.
Caribbean. I was playing at some restaurant, which is on the west side of the island, and I think you stopped by.
Yes, yeah.
I think
I did not know he was going to be playing, jazz piano down there. friend tell me, come on out, let's see what's going on.
Yeah.
And he was there, and that's how I connected with him. And then we connected later on a project, which you're going to hear tonight, of what he wanted to do. And this was the second time when he came back on the island.
Right.
And we met at the coffee shop, discussed, how we were going to work it out. And then from there, it just moved into the process of how you record music.
Right. In fact, more specifically with this tune, it's called Bend Don't Break. I had a melody and I had lyrics. And, because you heard Khadijo is an expert on, all things Afro-Latin rhythm, I figured I wanted to put the song in front of him and say, what rhythm does this song need? What speaks to you? And really got his help and his band to try to figure out what the groove should be to make that song really come alive.
Right.
So, Oren, I'm familiar with you as a DC area jazz pianist and composer. And I know that you have a pretty, you've released an album and a couple of singles on your own, but you also have a very extensive background in collaboration, writing and collaborating with other artists and vocalists especially. Maybe could you kind of dive in a little bit and tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Right. Like you said, I'm a jazz pianist and songwriter. I live in Washington, D.C. I've been back. I'm originally from D.C., but left for a long time, came back to D.C. in 2010. So, and I sort of came to this. I've been playing piano sort of forever at one level or another, but I really only got into songwriting seriously after I turned 40. So this is already into the 2010s because I'm ancient. And started writing songs. And then when I moved to DC, the first collaboration I did was I connected with Jason Mendelson, a mutual friend of ours, who took on this crazy idea of writing a song influenced by every metro station. And that was a really great way to sort of jumpstart a lot of songwriting in a very short time. I think I contributed at least 3 or 4, maybe more songs to that project. And the nice thing there was let me sort of experiment with a whole bunch of different styles, not just the sort of straight ahead jazz where I'm most comfortable, but I was experimenting with more sort of pop music and a little Afrobeat and some other stuff we threw in along the way. The album you mentioned, Making Up for Lost Time, which came out in 2018, was a collection of a bunch of jazz songs I had written, going back to the late 2000s, that are pretty much all sort of straight ahead jazz, most of them with lyrics because I enjoy writing lyrics. And then I recorded that with a whole bunch of my DC musician colleagues, 3 vocalists and 7 other instrumentalists over the course of a weekend. And since then, I've done a couple other sort of straight ahead jazz singles. I do a lot of work with Aaron Myers, who's a phenomenal singer, pianist, band leader in DC. I work a lot with some other vocalists, Barbara Papendorf and Tony Goodell, who come out of more of a sort of musical theater cabaret world. So I sort of get into that space. And then, with the Groove Park project, it's been an opportunity to do more of the kind of collaboration I was doing with Metro Songs, which is to get out of the straight ahead jazz scene, which I love, but, an opportunity to sort of get out of that and try to expand into more, groove based music, hence the name.
Well, so Khadijo, you had mentioned, or we're about to mention that the two of you maybe met online, but that maybe the two of you also met at another event, right?
Yeah, met in person here on St. Croix.
And then how did the collaboration actually kind of come to be?
Well, once I sort of got the idea of doing this sort of group art collaboration thing, I thought I had this song called Bend Don't Break, which was all about the palm trees of St. Croix. And I got in touch with Khadijo and said, I've got this great song. Do you want to record it with me on St. Croix? Because frankly, I need his help. I need your help. Right. I've got a great song. I really don't know what kind of rhythmic pulse needs to drive it. And I was hoping, and I was right in that he could, come up with a great rhythm arrangement with the trio.
So I didn't know what Oren's background in Caribbean music was at that time, because Caribbean music is very vast. And there's a lot of African influences and Spanish influences and other things. So once I got an idea of what he was looking for, I pulled my trio, because I play with a trio, Kwabena trio. And we sort of start to experiment and work at it. But for me, the way how I listen to straight ahead jazz music is probably not the same way as some Americans listen to it. I listen to it with a lot of syncopation in mind. So I will take, some drum pattern of 16, pattern, whatever, and then start thinking of a percussive element that will go with it. So, and that sort of is the way how it came up for his song, because his song is very specific. There's many things you can use, but it has to fit one of those rhythms that we, develop here. Because like I said, there's a lot of rhythms and there's several different genres here. And you have to really know what you're doing in order to make that fit.
Yeah. So how would you describe what we came up with? It's sort of a merengue.
It's right.
Well,
we knew that it was going to be something within the Latin rhythms. So you've got the Latin rhythms, you've got the African rhythms, and then you've got the calypso rhythms and different variations of those. So because the instrumentation of what he's playing the piano, my boys are playing the bass and drums, we knew that it was going to be Latin groove based to some extent. Now, as to which one it would be, I couldn't figure it out until we collaborated together, where I had to hear him sit down and play the song as if, he could play it. And then in our minds, we knew, okay, that's what it would fit like. And from there we went on, and it just collabed, because I played percussion on it, congas.
What's interesting too, it's been a challenge too in sort of describing it to people, because it really doesn't fit easily into a lot of the sort of standard classifications. Not a calypso record, it's not a merengue record, it's not a bachata record.
Yeah,
it's got a bunch of pieces of a lot of different influences, which I think is actually very, very St. Croix.
The musical culture here is reflective of the people that are here. We've got different people, Americans, we've got Black Americans, we've got people from Europe, Denmark, and England, and all those places, plus the other Caribbean islands, as well as people from Central and South America. So the influence it's a mixture. You have to really, appreciate diversity living here. It's not, one flavor at Baskin Robbins. So for it.
That seems like the best possible world, in terms of being able to have this collaboration and have it represent so many of those different influences coming from the island of St. Croix.
Right.
So how much did the band, because your band you're normally collaborating with, did your band perform a lot on this particular track?
Well, the trio, with myself playing piano and bass and drums, we did all of the rhythm sections on the track, and then from there on we built. Oren did most of the harmonizing, because he was doing, and then of course it's his melody, so that layered on top, and whatever else he wanted to put on it. But the rhythm section was covered by my band. Yeah.
So we first recorded the rhythm, percussion, drums, bass with the piano track. We recorded that first. And then Khadijo introduced me to a wonderful vocalist, Francillia Benjamin, to come in and sing the lyrics. And we did a separate session where she sang on top of that rhythm bed we had already established. And then I laid down a second piano track, because I wasn't too happy with the first one.
Right.
So I sort of redid the piano track and then added some additional keyboards back in DC. But the sort of heart of the song is that rhythmic pulse that Khadijo and the trio came up with.
Well, you shared the lyric video with me. I'd love to go ahead and play it, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about some of these lyrics and how the lyrics started to affect the rest of the feel of the song.
Okay. All right.
troubles to the water, walk my worries sea to sea. Just a calm blue solitude, with my problems behind me. Heard the rumbles of the water, ripples running from the sea, and another small whisper saying, what's it gonna be? I heard the palm trees' message, avoiding them won't make them disappear. We don't have another option, we stand and face it when clouds are near. Bend, don't break when the rain is falling, when the tempter starts to rise. Bend, don't break when the wind is calling, swaying, never falling. And we survive, and we survive. Turn my back upon the water, took a look up at the tree, felt a calm green solitude, like a shelter around me. As I walked up from the water, as I lost sight of the sea, I could hear that small whisper saying, just remember me. I hear the palm trees lesson every time I face another test. Stay in place and take the option, stand and face it and do my best. And don't break when the rain is falling, when the tempter starts to rise. Bend, don't break when the wind is calling, swaying, never falling. And we survive, and we survive. Can't always run from confrontation, but challenge doesn't always mean a fight. If your roots are sound, you can move yourself around, get through the crisis and save your life. Bend, don't break when the rain is falling, when the tempter starts to rise. Bend, don't break when the wind is calling, swaying, never falling. And we survive, and we survive.
You listen to me putting that up at meeting.
Yeah, that's nice.
All right. Welcome back. That was lovely. I'm so glad we got a chance to actually watch that all the way through and experience that together with everybody. Especially knowing so much more about the detail and all the work that the two of you have put in to be able to make that song possible. How did the lyrics come into play? How do you address lyrics in this kind of collaboration?
So when I mean, lyrics I had going into it, the lyrics, usually I'll start with a phrase or an idea and then make a story around it. And I think this one likely started with an idea from my wife, because she has all the best ideas for songs. And we were talking about this idea. There's a couple of palm trees on the seashore right nearby that are sort of bent and twisted over, but still alive. And she was talking about this idea of like bending, not breaking. You know, these trees that have the palm trees have to sort of stand up to the storms and the hurricanes over years and years, and they bend and twist, but they still survive. And that's a really powerful message of bend, don't break, which is all about resilience and flexibility. And so that's the kernel of the idea, which bend, don't break, which is a nice rhythmic phrase, and this idea. And then what took me a while to come up with is a story of basically going down to the water with your problems and having a conversation with the palm trees and learning that lesson about bending and not breaking from the trees. And so over the course of, I'm not sure, a few days probably, I came up with a musical story around that, and then put some music to it that I thought fit that lyric story. And I knew it was going to be some sort of, Caribbean / island / Latin rhythm, but I didn't really have a specific pulse in mind or even a tempo in mind. until I brought the sort of completed work with the lyrics and melody to Khadijo and the band.
And then you were, or sorry, Khadijo, you introduced Oren to Francillia.
Yeah.
Yes, I called Francillia up because Francillia is a local singer and she has done extensive work on her own.
Right.
And I have worked with her in the past, but nothing was formal. It was sort of just either preparing for something or getting towards something that didn't really pan out to be anything. And she's a list of singers that I've worked with in the past. And I said, you know what, let me give my girl Francillia a call. And sure enough, she said yes. And I said, okay, you're going to have to link with Oren because it's his song and he knows the melody very well. And he can, because, you know, the thing with singers is they have to, internalize the music vocally for themselves. Because yes, they're singing it and that's sort of like the instrument part of their vocal, but they have to really internalize this and feel it. And you heard those vocal effects that she did. So those are things that, you know, she probably knew it sounds better with this, right? Especially with the percussion solo in that area. So all of those things, that's her part. We can't do that, you know, as musicians. That's her part that she can do. And vocalists tends to do that, but they have to spend a considerable amount of time with the song. I don't know, after we recorded, how long did...
Yeah, it was a good few months until I basically also was timed around when I was here and out in DC. So it was really only my next trip to the island where I was able to get together with Francillia and record the vocals. So she had some time to think about it,
right,
and I had some time to think about it. The best part of the vocal recording is when we got to the bridge, she just started fooling around in the studio and singing a harmony part on top of the bridge.
Right.
I said, you know, do that again. Like this time we'll record that because that's great. I hadn't planned on it. You had mentioned doing some vocal harmony.
Yeah, I did mention adding something to it.
Yeah, and I was going to mention it to her, but then she did it on her own,
right,
which is, again, like a great vocalist brings that. You'll hear that actually on the other song, Island in the Sea. The same sort of thing where Aaron decided, I'm going to add some vocal harmony and I'm not going to stand in his way, or her way in this case.
Right. So you sort of have to allow the artist a little lead way into sort of gelling and creating and molding the song and being respectful, but not taking away from, you know, his vision.
Right. And the same with the melody, because I'm basically a jazz composer, so I know that the melody is at best a suggestion. Every time a lot of time after I've written a melody, once it gets in the hand of a singer and once the singer has worked with it for a while, the melody that comes out, as far as I'm concerned, the melody that eventually comes out is the melody that the song really needs, even if it's not the one I wrote.
Right.
Well, that is a bit of what it's like, even just to be a songwriter on your own. You're kind of uncovering a song that already exists, right? So it doesn't start out like you imagine it, but it always ends up somehow, you know, like you imagined it, even though you only got it in these kinds of whispers or pieces.
Exactly. Yeah. It ends up the way it should be, even if that's not what the notes on the paper are.
Right. So. And this happens even for composers of different kinds of music as well. So, you know, what you hear the musicians do to your music, you can only allow certain things. So you have to give them the liberty to play,
right,
and to play it as how they would, because they're humans. They're not machines that you tell them do it that way. They're gonna play with feeling and things that they know it sounds better this way.
Well, I think I probably speak for most of us when I say we'd rather have the humans playing the instruments. You know?
Absolutely.
No, that's not to say that the computers, you know, because these days computers are doing wonderful things that, you know, we humans really can't do. But let the humans play play the music. Yeah.
As much as possible. We'll let those robots take our jobs another day.
Right. Exactly.
But today we'll celebrate some human players. It's
right.
There's some great electronic composers and electronic producers, and certainly a ton of things that you can do. But I will say that there's what somebody explained to me was there's always a risk with a live instrument. And so I think that's what we're always trying to capture on a recording is the risk associated with
Right.
with having all of these various contributors or collaborators.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you are just joining us, I am here with Khadijo and Oren live from the island of St. Croix. We just watched Bend Don't Break, which is the second single from the Groove Park project. You can find out more about Khadijo at khadijomusic.com and about Groove Park at grooveparkmusic.com. I'll also post in, let's see, we've got Oren is a fan of Instagram, so you can find him on Instagram at Groove Park Music, or you can reach him on his personal Instagram outlet here at OHL Jazz. And then, Khadija, you're a Facebook fan. Is that right?
Yeah, I love Facebook because I'm connecting with people. Just the other day, I connected with someone from Brisbane.
Really, in Australia?
Yeah,
Wow.
and I guess she just discovered me. They have a reggae scene on in Australia, and she picked up on it because the hashtag words reggae jazz and everything connected to it. So she didn't really understood how the vibraphone could fit into reggae music, and we spent a lot of time talking together as to how the vibraphone had its place in reggae music and how that jazz element came in, because a lot of people don't know that it's not just American jazz. There's nothing wrong with that because I studied that as well. But once you step outside of America, that's when you start to understand the world and how jazz influence is just a little part of it. It's sort of like Dizzy Gillespie went to Cuba, right? And he discovered that.
Yeah.
Or what's this guy? Stan Getz, when he connected with, yes.
Yeah, him, Charlie Bird, yeah.
Right. And that's how people in America at that time discovered, here, there's a different kind of jazz out there you need to get to, or you need to listen to. And that's how it came up. Now, for us here in the Caribbean, it's probably going to be calypso jazz or reggae jazz. And these things are not new. They've been there probably at the same time as Bob Marley, Peter Tosh in that time. It's just that musicians didn't really come to the forefront with this type of music until about, I say, probably around the 70s. And so when I discovered playing vibraphone and loved it so much, I did not know that myself that the vibraphone has a history in reggae jazz music. And it just sort of grew on me. And then I discovered that there was a person who did it before me, and there are other people who are doing it out there. So I just continue with that path. And it's the path that I love now. Of course, we can do all other different types of jazz, but that's where my heart is right now.
Well, I imagine, for most people, whether you've gone maybe down a jazz road or a classical road, I mean, I think a lot of those structures are there to give you a certain appreciation as well as a certain amount of dexterity, right? But certainly anybody, once you get out there and you realize how much music there actually is, it's way bigger than any one genre or even like one, I guess you could say, like educational field.
Yes,
right.
So I am also curious, if this kind of collaboration, is this something that your students are inspired, to try to create more collaborations themselves?
Well, because we are an island that is influenced by America heavily, they understand that the music that is out there is all about collaboration. However, a lot of my students are into American hip hop and American pop and R&B music, and some will even have mentioned to me the British grunge, not grunge, but grime scene. So it's sort of like the British style of hardcore rap, I guess. So they understand collaboration, but not specifically on the instrumental level, because they're young. They only know what they know, and anything outside of what probably what is 2000 to anything past 2000, they don't know, or they probably don't care about. But that's how teenagers are, so you have to bring them to that level. So I'm planning to introduce them to something like this, because most of them know me as a pianist, but they don't know me as a vibraphonist or a percussionist. And with this particular song, when it comes to the section where we talk about Caribbean music, I'm definitely going to bring that in. Right. So not to give me a little shine, but, to let them know that musicians from DC can collaborate with musicians here on the island, so that, because that's how their life is going to be, especially the ones that are going to move on to the United States and Canada and Europe and wherever else they're going.
And speaking of DC in specific, back in May, we brought down a jazz trio. Amy Bormet and her trio came down from DC to spend a couple weeks here on the island, and they played a couple of concerts. And they did a couple of really great workshops in the public high schools at Khadijo School and over at the other public high school in St. Croix. And they brought a little bit of Duke Ellington with a little bit of go-go.
Yes.
So they introduced the students to a bit of that DC sound as well, to sort of add to their rhythmic vocabulary.
That's beautiful. I was also going to mention earlier in the call that I was, made more aware of some of the like the music of the African diaspora and all of its kind of concentration around, your area, and the way that all of those cultures weave together, especially how music brings a lot of these cultures together, through Jean-Francis Var, who spoke at the DC Music Summit a couple of years ago. And I feel like it's an amazing thing, even just to have the technology today. If you'd told me we'd be having chats, with musicians from St. Croix here on
that's globalization for you.
So maybe we could put some more folks together between DC and St. Croix. It would certainly make my heart glad to be involved in that.
Part of my goal. That's part of the whole Groove Park idea, right? I'm going to try to do more of that. And like I said, I've got to work on some more music.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, that's what I'm put on earth for. So music. Let's do it.
Well, we can also maybe try to help out some of those students connect with some collaborators in other genres as well, if they're looking to break. And for me, I mentioned this in the green room, I'm a little bit of an ADHD kid, so to me, if we can find a way to make a song with 5 or 6 different kinds of genres all smushed together somehow, that would tickle me. So
that'd be great. Let's talk.
Well, we've talked about all of these current projects, and I don't want to take time away from the two of you since we've got you both here, but I'd love to mention a little bit about that DC background with your first single for the Groove Park project with Aaron Myers. Oren, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the first thing I did for Groove Park was a song called Island in the Sea, which again, I wrote several years ago with no particular goal in mind. I've been, you probably know, if you're a songwriter, you just sort of write songs and put them away, and you hope you'll do something with them later. So I had this song called Island in the Sea, which I guess what I was originally thinking of it is sort of a kind of a throwback, old fashioned R&B vibe, because, back from the 70s and 80s or something like that. And 4 or 5 years after I wrote it, I decided, it's high time I did something with this song. So I took it to Aaron Myers and Percy White, who's an amazing bass player and producer and arranger in his own right. And sort of putting our heads together, we started thinking about, actually, the best part is I took the song to Aaron and Percy, and Aaron listened to the song and he said, Nancy Wilson, Stroh's beer, which led me to a YouTube video of a television commercial. Apparently Nancy Wilson did a bunch of TV commercials for Stroh's back in the 70s, which are really hip. You should listen to those. And so she does one of them with this really great sort of laid back 1970s R&B groove. And Aaron said, that's Island in the Sea. And so we came up with an arrangement around that kind of feel, which you can hear in the song. And with that setting, we then recruited a bunch of other musicians. We had Aaron and Percy playing on. Aaron sang it. Ollie Wright is a phenomenal keyboard player who plays with Percy all the time. She laid on some additional keyboard tracks. We got a guy named Soul Roots, who's a brilliant DC area blues guitarist. He did a phenomenal solo on that. And then Angel Bethea, who's a young drummer who was actually on St. Croix with Amy and her trio in May. So Angel's a spectacular drummer, and put that band together in the studio, and produced Island in the Sea. And in releasing that, I decided that's where I sort of came up with the Groove Park name in the context of releasing that song, because I thought, here's a great single. It's not the sort of thing I normally do. Maybe I should release it under a different brand, so to speak, that'll give me an opening to do more collaborations like this and more explorations of the sort of groove-based music outside the sort of traditional straight-ahead jazz stuff.
Well, it's really coming together. I'm a fan of both songs. They're very different, and they definitely highlight, the a little bit of each musician as well as the style of the songs. I can't wait to see more of that full body of work, and hopefully more collaborations from the two of you.
Yes. Oh, thanks. Yeah, look forward to it. Like I said, I'm busy now sort of going through songs and writing new songs and trying to figure out what the next one's going to be.
Well, we've gone over Groove Park. We've shared a little bit about both of your backgrounds. We've sent everybody to check out Island in the Sea and to stay in touch with you on all of your various social media platforms. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell everybody that's on the line tonight?
Happening.
From me, I just released, I think last year, Loving Forever, where I actually took the vibraphone into that reggae jazz feel. I don't know if you have it, but you probably do. The single is called Loving Forever. It's on YouTube, and it has Elvis Pedro on electric guitar and me on vibraphone. And so I am creating that niche where I'm putting jazz on that platform of reggae music so that people can open up their minds and different perspective as to how we do jazz. And then after that, I think before that, after it, I did Ramaphosa, and that's a tune that is 10 minutes long, but it has that Afro jazz feel, something similar to like Fela Kuti, probably 30 years before his time, after his time, I should say, Fela Kuti. So if you can hear that and hear how I add the marimba, because I do play marimbas myself, and how the marimba came into being, and then the vibraphone, and then the steel pan, and then other instruments in there. So it's a real groovy track. It's called Ramaphosa by me, Khadijo.
I did check that out right before the call, and I loved the complexities there. There's a lot of just like interwoven parts,
Right.
and almost where one instrument takes over before you realize it's taken over.
Right.
So definitely go check that out. What was the name of the other song? Because I want to make
Loving
sure.
Forever.
Loving Forever. I will find that on
it's on YouTube. Yeah, it's out there. It's on YouTube. And then, of course, the single from my Vetiver album, which came out last year as well, that's Inner Tucson. So that has that heavy Jamaican influence, but also it's propped up by that jazz feeling in between, coming from the vibraphone, and adding the flute in there to give it that special little touch that people are probably, wow, I didn't know you could add flute to reggae music. Oh yeah, it's been done all the time. The thing about music here in the Caribbean, we sort of have a blueprint from America that we can look at and say, okay, these guys were doing it this way. How about if we do it this way in our own way? And that's how this whole thing came about, especially with things like steel pan. Steel pan came from Trinidad, and they were listening to the older music of Fats Domino and all those people from back then, and they just said, hey, let's do it this way. Let's do it this way. They were listening to people like Gary Burton, and Chick Corea and all those type of people, and said, let's do it our way. Hence how we came to have the artist Andy Narell, who plays steel pan, and he's like phenomenal.
Victor
Phenomenal.
Provost now in DC.
Yeah, and Victor Provost and those guys.
DC.
So that influence is coming out. It's coming out. It's just that we as Caribbean artists need to push it even more and more and more and more, so that audiences all over the world can catch on to our style of jazz music, instead of thinking, well, it's probably not on the same level. It is on the same level. It's just that it's in our own way of doing things.
Well, here at Alchemical Records, we're big fans of doing it your own way. So please feel free to send us all of these creative artists looking to try to get some coverage, and we'll try to help them break through the media noise.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you both for being on the call tonight, Khadijo, Oren. It's been a blast. I will be looking forward for the next collaboration. You two spend some time together and let's get on it.
Yes, we'll let you know. Thanks again, Daniel. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can find out more about Groove Park at the Groove Park website. Groove Park, is it grooveparkmusic.com? I got to scroll up.
GrooveParkMusic.com and OHLJazz.com is my website with the rest of my stuff.
OHLJazz.com and KhadijoMusic.com. You can find more about me and my amazing team of collaborators at Alchemical Records at alchemicalrecords.com. We're working very hard to go live with our in-print magazine this October, and you can find out more about that at alchemicalrecords.com/magazine. Again, thank you, Oren. Thank you, Khadijo. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks again, Daniel. Bye now.